Good morning and welcome to ABC News. I'm Borcher, coming to you from the lands of the Gadigal people. New South Wales authorities are warning that despite a reprieve from heavy rain, the flood danger is not over, with more than 30 emergency warnings in place on the mid-north coast. More than 50 people have been rescued in the past 24 hours. The majority of them had driven through floodwaters. Meanwhile, the federal government has confirmed disaster funding for residents in 19 local government areas. The SES says at least 10,000 properties have been damaged.
I understand why people, now that the rain is stopped, will be up and about and moving around, but you cannot drive through floodwaters. It is taking up valuable emergency services personnel time and efforts and priorities that are needed elsewhere. It is also obviously a key life risk, and we've already seen the tragic deaths associated with people driving into floodwaters. So I ask people, if you're up and about, moving around, helping out in terms of, as communities do, and this is a wonderful thing that communities will be helping communities, be safe, watch where the traffic is, but do not drive through floodwaters and do not take any associated risk for yourself, for you moving around, or to help others. It is still very dangerous out in many of these locations. Whilst the weather has shifted, our focus is now very much shifted to the resupply operations. That ranges from bulk resupply for large communities that are isolated, and this is all levels of government that are supporting that mechanism in terms of getting bulk resupplies to supermarkets and the like. In addition to that, we've got numerous, and when I say numerous, I'm talking hundreds of individual supplies in terms of medical supplies and food supplies to isolated communities and isolated residences. 132 500 is the mechanism. If you need resupply, is to do that. The SES will be able to facilitate that either through our own means or with others.
And for more, I'm joined by reporter Emma Renie, who's in Kempsey in New South Wales. Emma, what's the situation like there in Kempsey today?
Well, Kempsey is beginning the process of recovery from major flooding. So here in town, the major flood height is 6.6 metres. This flood reached around 7.1 metres, so quite significant. Homes and businesses have been inundated, and there are still, in fact, we've seen homes this morning that still have water sitting in them, even though the floodwaters are receding. So we heard from the Bureau that I think the water level here at Kempsey is about 5.9 now. So it's fallen below that, or as of this morning, I should say. So it has fallen below that major flood level. It's expected to fall back below the moderate flood level sometime throughout today. But yeah, a significant sort of recovery process now facing many homes and businesses in Kempsey.
Yeah, big job ahead. What about the local authorities? What have they been saying?
Well, we're here at the SES headquarters in Kempsey now. Their big priorities today are going to be rapid damage assessments to ensure that buildings and facilities are safe for people to re-enter. They're also looking at resupplying isolated communities. Kempsey's on the Macleay River, which is a very fast-moving river when in flood, and there have been communities isolated along the river system. So they're looking at, taking in food and medical supplies to those areas and providing medical evacuations as needed. Emergency services have even, in around the time that we've been here, been called to flood rescues too. So the warning from authorities to not drive through floodwater still very pertinent, even with the floodwaters receding. People are still finding themselves in trouble if they do try and take that risk. So that plea has come from the SES as they're still dealing with that type of situation. And then more broadly, authorities here are, of course, managing lots of sites and properties without power and have been without power for a couple of days now. So trying to reconnect those homes and businesses to power so that the cleanup can get underway in earnest, Dan.
Emma Renie reporting from Kempsey. And for more detail, Jonathan Howard, Senior Meteorologist at the Bureau of Meteorology, and joins us now. Morning, Jonathan. Give us an update on the rain and the floods.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. So the good news is that the rain has now cleared eastern New South Wales. That's, of course, after we did see 5 days of incredible totals. Between 500 to 700 millimetres of rainfall did fall. That's about 2 to 3 months worth of rainfall. So the rain has now cleared and there's plenty of sunshine, but the message from us is to keep following the advice of local police and SES. A lot of rivers are still swollen and there is still a lot of water flowing downstream. So in terms of warnings, at the moment, there is still one major flood warning. That's a Wallenby Brook in the Hunter. We are still seeing the rivers rising at some locations on Wallenby Brook. And there is also minor to moderate flooding as well occurring, as you've just heard. The good news is that for places like Taree, they've now fallen below the minor flood level, but as you've just heard at Kempsey, we are still seeing moderate flooding there. So reminding people to keep an eye on the latest flood watches and warnings. Even though the rain has stopped, there is still a lot of danger out there.
Those are some incredible rain totals that we've seen, and while all that's been happening, wind is starting or is set to start building up across the southeast.
Yes, that's right. So the next sort of focus for us is across South Australia, Victoria and Tasmania. We are seeing a number of cold fronts coming through the southeast. The first one moves through tonight, just a bit of wind and some showers coming through. But then later on Sunday, so tomorrow into Monday, we will see the most powerful cold front of the year so far. So we'll see those winds increasing from Sunday afternoon across South Australia. We could see some areas of raised dust as well as far as the Riverlands and also the Mallee in Victoria. And then we will see those very widespread damaging to destructive winds for large parts of South Australia, including Adelaide, the Mount Lofty Ranges, much of Western Victoria, the Central Ranges, and also up into alpine areas. The real concern is that because it has been so dry across Southeast Australia, a lot of trees are incredibly weak, and so it won't take much wind to topple these trees. So we are expecting to see increased tree foliage as well as branches falling around as well, in addition to that dust. And across the South Australian coast, we will also see huge waves. You could see waves of in excess of 8 metres offshore, and this will combine with the spring or the high tide next week. So there is the concern for significant coastal erosion about parts of the South Australian coast, even pushing to southwest Victoria as well. So for those across that area, we are reminding people, stay up to date with the warnings. We'll be issuing damaging to destructive wind warnings from tomorrow, then those coastal hazards warnings as well. So a lot of weather coming across southeast Australia.
Yeah, going to be needing to stay tuned to that. I mean, when you talk about that, the most powerful cold front of the year so far, that is just extraordinary. On the other side of the country, Jonathan, what are we expecting in Western Australia?
Yes, so for northern parts of WA, so the Kimberley, the Pilbara and North Interior, we are expected to see some quite unseasonal rainfall developing. That's all pushing down from the Indian Ocean across the land, and we have issued a flood watch for that rain. So the rain will really start to pick up from tomorrow, peaking on Monday and Tuesday. We are expecting to see between 100 to 200 millimetres, and some places could see in excess of 200 millimetres. This is the dry season, so it's quite out of season, but the concern is for campers and tourists who might be around that area to keep an eye on latest flood watch. We could see some dirt roads being impacted as well as some travel disruptions. So for those right across northern WA, we'll also see that rainfall push into central Australia, particularly through Alice Springs. They're expecting a very cold day on Wednesday, just 11 degrees of rainfall. So all that rainfall and cloud pushing to central Australia. So across the country, plenty going on.
My word, there is Jonathan Howe, Senior Meteorologist at the Bureau of Meteorology. Thank you so much for your time.